We are going to discuss properties of exponents. The first property is a zero exponent property, where any number raised to the power of 0 equals 1, as long as the number itself is not 0. So the first example I have is 5 raised to the power of 0 equals 1. The second example I have is an expression, negative 10x raised to the power of 0 is also equal to 1. The second property that we're talking about is the identity property, where any number raised to the power of 1 equals itself. The example that I have is 5 raised to the power of 1 equals 5, and the expression negative 10x raised to the power of 1 is also itself negative 10x. Now we have the negative exponent property, where any non-zero number raised to a negative power can be changed to a positive power if you take the reciprocal. So the example we have is 5 raised to the negative 2 power equals 1 over 5 squared, or 5 to the positive 2 power. And in example B, the 5 is at the bottom of the fraction. So what we do is we actually take the reciprocal, put it at the top, and change the power to positive. Power of power property. Any power raised to another power, we keep the base and multiply the exponents. So we have b to the m raised to the nth power. We multiply m times n. So here in the example, we have 5 squared raised to the third power. We multiply the exponents 2 times 3. We have 5 to the sixth power. Here we have x to the third power raised to the fifth power. We multiply the exponents and we get 3 times 5, therefore it is x to the 15th power. Product of powers property. Where powers with the same base are being multiplied, all you have to do is keep the base and add their exponents. So in the first example, I have 5 squared times 5 to the 4th power. I'm going to keep the base because the bases are the same. So that would be 5, and then we add the exponents, 2 plus 4, so we get 5 to the 6th power. Here we have an expression 3x to the 3rd power times x to the 5th power. We leave the 3 as it is, and then we take x to the 3rd and x to the 5th, write the base one time only because it's the same base. We add the exponents, 3 plus 5 equals 8, so we get 3x to the 8th power. Quotient of powers property. Dividing powers with the same base, what we do is we keep the base and subtract the exponents. Now here we say b does not equal 0. That's because dividing by 0 is undefined. So when you have situations where you're dividing by 0, you should know that it is undefined. Now the example I have here is 5 to the 4th power divided by 5 to the 2nd power equals, we keep the base, 4 minus 2, and that gives us 5 to the 2nd power, or 5 squared, which you can also simplify and write as 25. Letter B, we have 2x to the 3rd power, and we have x here. Now we know that any number is always raised to the 1st power, so we know that the power here is 1. So we have 2x, 3 minus 1 here, and then we end up with 2 times x squared. Power of product property. Here we have a product which is b times c. We find the exponents and multiply it by the power. So we have b to the m power times n and c to the m power times n. In example A, we have 5 times 9 raised to the 3rd power. When the exponent is not indicated, you should know that it is 1, according to the identity property. So we have 5 to the 1st power times 3 and 9 to the 1st power times 3. So we end up with 5 to the 3rd power and 9 to the 3rd power. Here we have 5 to the 2nd power and x to the 3rd power. They're being multiplied. So we will take the exponents and multiply them. Here we have 5 to the 2nd power times 2, x to the 3rd power times 2. We end up with 5 to the 4th and x to the 6th power. Power of quotient property. We have b and c being divided. So we find their powers and multiply by the outside power. So here we have b to the n power times n, c to the n power times n. Our example here, we have 5 over 6 squared raised to the 3rd power. So 5 does not have an exponent, therefore we know it is 1. 1 times 3, and then we have 6 squared, so we're going to multiply 2 times 3. So we end up with 5 to the 3rd power and 6 to the 6th power. Letter B, we have 3 squared x squared divided by 7. So again, we're going to multiply the exponents. So we have 3 to the 2nd power times 2, x to the 2nd power times 2, and then 7 to the 1st power times 2. So we end up with 3 to the 4th power, x to the 4th power, and 7 squared. Lastly, we have fraction exponents. When we have a number raised to fraction exponent, we have to find the root of the number and then raise it to a power. So here we have the number 64 raised to 2/3 power. We have to find the third root of 64, meaning that there's a number that was multiplied by itself 3 times to get 64. And we know that if we multiply 4 by 4 by 4, we will get 64. So then we take the number 4 and we raise it to the 2nd power. So that gives us 16. Here we have 25 raised to the 3/2 power. Notice that we didn't write the 2 over here because it is the square root and it is assumed that the 2 is there. So the square root of 25 is 5. The number that was multiplied by itself twice is 5. And we take 5 and we raise it to the 3rd power. That gives us 125.